Bishop Gaiters, there's been nothing short of a tremendous response to your newest series and latest appearances on Crowdsource the Truth. How are you today?
I am doing great, Jason. And then again, Happy New Year. And so excited to tackle this subject today that's going to have a powerful outcome in tomorrow's voting within the Senate.
Yeah, I think a lot of our viewers have been pretty frustrated by what's been going on with this impeachment process. And I think it's a relief for people to hear a black conservative come and speak about his opinions and his insights about the president, given all the things we've heard in the mainstream news, allegations that Donald Trump is a racist or a white supremacist. I mean, it's really all just a bunch of nonsense, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And probably near the end of today's broadcast, I'm going to expose Joe Biden as that very same person. Going back to 1974, passing laws that supported not only segregation, but also he was the author of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act in 1994, incarcerating over 2.5 million black men. So no, Joe Sleepy Creepy Biden is the one that is racist.
Absolutely. And I think that it's amazing for me to watch. I know we're not going to talk about this specifically today. You're going to get into some of the background and history of how it all started, but it's just so frustrating to watch these impeachment proceedings, and we hear the Democratic, whether it's members of the House or members of the Senate, they're repeating the same talking points, talking about the foregone conclusion that Donald Trump has abused his power, putting out these weird sort of hypothetical questions into the news where if you're innocent, why wouldn't you call witnesses? I mean, this is something that is a gross distortion of the law in the United States. People are presumed innocent until they're found to be guilty. I don't think any one of us would want to be sort of shoehorned into a courtroom and subjected to a dangerous process that could cost us our job, our livelihood, our reputation, and even our freedom, on the basis that if you're innocent, you should have nothing to hide and let every witness come out.
Absolutely. You know, one of my favorite sayings concerning knowing the truth, Jason, is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong. And then today we're going to conclude this series entitled The
Well,
Conception.
they're found to be guilty. I don't think. Sorry about that, Bishop.
Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah, so then the conception, birth, and the plot to destroy President Donald J. Trump, part two. We're going to conclude this series entitled The Plot in Concerning Ukraine. Go right ahead, Jason.
No, that was, I opened a window and it started playing sound. I apologize. We're ready for you to begin.
Absolutely. Well, last week we unpacked the Russian conspiracy. Christopher Steele, the Oberus Intelligence Limited there in London, England, where you went and exposed them, and rightfully so, because you're a great patriot, Jason. And also concerning not just Christopher Steele, former MI6 agent, 35-page dossier, George. We talked about Senator John McCain in his connection with, I believe, Sir Andrew Wood. Okay, so all of these ley lines with $21 trillion missing from the Pentagon budget. Now we're coming into this Ukraine conspiracy, which is all rooted in the Uranium One deal going back to the year 2010. Now, in February 2014, President Viktor Yanukovych was ousted through a coup d'etat from power by John Brennan, the director of the CIA, including Vice President Joe Sleepy Creeping Biden and Barack Obama, and which created the Ukrainian revolution that overtook the city of Kyiv in the Ukraine. Now, President Yanukovych was removed from power. Now, it's interesting about this Ukraine conspiracy that to understand the complexities today. My job is to decrypt the encryption of the Ukraine conspiracy. So, following the Ukrainian Revolution, Jason, in 2014, Vice President Joe Biden influenced the creation of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, or better known as the NABU. Now, during the 2016 presidential election, which would create the lies and that was leaked through the Anti-Corruption Bureau, that Donald Trump and Paul Manafort were connected to both Russia and Ukraine. I'm going to talk about that later on in the broadcast. So this National Anti-Corruption Bureau that Joe Biden helped to create back in 2014, his target was Paul Manafort, in order to create the lie that Donald J. Trump colluded not only with Russia to win the 2016 presidential election, but also colluded with Paul Manafort to create the conspiracy in Ukraine to hire CrowdStrike out of Irvine, California, to hack the DNC servers, which I'm going to prove that Donald Trump, in the Trump administration, the upcoming Trump administration, had nothing to do with that. The DNC hired CrowdStrike, all right, which has George Soros money all over it, to hack their own servers in order to create the Russian-Ukrainian narrative. So here, the conception, birth, and now the plot concerning Ukraine to destroy President Donald J. Trump. Now, let's examine the chronology here. In 2014, Joe Biden becomes the point man that was put in charge by Barack Obama to create three distinct dimensions or paradigms: motive, means, and opportunity. Okay, again, motive, means, and opportunity to destroy President Donald J. Trump. Now, always remember this to your audience, Jason, that a villain always helps to resolve the case. So the villain is Barack Obama, and the villain is Joe Biden. And through the admission with a sympathetic reason, in other words, Barack Obama and Joe Biden wanted to create what I call chaos theory through emotional reasoning that will give birth to a psychological warfare term, what we call problem reaction solution.
Yeah.
Again, problem reaction solution, where you create a crisis, you create a catastrophe in order to force a reactionary move by the people, where the masses of the people will give up their rights in order to be safe. That was the goal of Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton in this conception, birth, and the plot to destroy our great president, President Donald J. Trump. So they need a villain. So the true villain, Joe Biden, creates a counterfeit villain, which is President Trump. Okay, the reason to bring about a chaos theory. Okay, so the term chaos theory means that every chaos has an order, and every order has a chaos. I can't stress this enough. Again, to understand psychological warfare, we have to understand the complexity of what we call chaos theory, that every chaos has an order, and every order has a chaos through emotional reasoning to establish problem reactionary solutions, which brings us to the third paradigm, to create a new villain, Donald J. Trump. So then the plot, which is Ukraine, creates a counterfeit villain, Donald J. Trump, who is not a villain, but the villain is Joe Biden. And by creating this new villain, Donald J. Trump, in connection to Paul Manafort, the left, the DNC, and the Obama administration creates what we call chaos theory, that every order has a chaos and every chaos has an order. Now, one might say, Bishop, what is emotional reasoning? Well, emotional reasoning is defined as cognitive processes by which a person or a nation like Ukraine concludes that their emotional reaction back in 2014 proves something is true regardless of the evidence. In other words, Jason, to understand the plot, which is Ukraine, that was set in motion by Barack Obama and Joe Sleepy, Creepy, Sniffing Biden, uh, the Ukrainians only knew the chaos, but they did not fully comprehend the cause that produced the chaos. I got to say this again. The Ukrainians only knew the chaos, but they did not fully comprehend, Jason, the cause that produced the chaos. The cause that produced the chaos was Joe Biden. So then the CIA, through John Brennan, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, created the problem reactionary solution to create a crisis, to remove a president from power, okay, in the Ukraine, in order to set up a puppet government to bring about probably the most corrupted government in not just within the Western Hemisphere, but Ukraine is one of the most corrupt governments on earth today. So
Wow.
through this shadow power, okay, the Barack Obama administration creates a chaos theory so that the people, the Ukrainians, would react knowing only the chaos, but never knowing or comprehending, Jason, the very cause that produced the chaos, Barack Obama and Joe Biden, because they never comprehended the cause. The cause was the CIA. The cause was Barack Obama. The cause was Joe Biden to produce chaos. So the shadow power government of the Obama administration offers the solution that was already planned, Jason, long before the crisis was even created. Look at 9/11. So then Ukraine, I would say, is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside of an enigma, Winston Churchill. So then my assignment today, Jason, is to fully decrypt the encryption of this plot. So then Barack Obama understanding uh, manipulating situations, thereby manipulating personnel. If you're going to manipulate situations, the person who is the manipulator has to know the art of manipulation. And this is what we talked about last week with unintentional manipulation versus intentional manipulation. That's Barack Obama. So then Vice President Joe Biden, along with a woman by the name of Victoria Nuland, who is the former Assistant Secretary for European and Eurasian Affairs within the Obama State Department, all right, along with former U.S. Ambassador to the Ukraine, Jeffrey Pyatt. This is back in January 2014. There were conversations between Jeffrey Pyatt, capital Geoffrey, Pyatt, capital Pyatt, Ambassador Pyatt had conversations, Jason, with Victoria Nuland, thus creating a conspiracy to remove President Viktor Yanukovych. I believe that back in February 2014. So their plan was to remove President Viktor from power. Why?
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it
why?
all connects to the Uranium One deal. Go right ahead, Jason.
Well, I was just going to ask why. Uranium One, of course. We've got a lot of comments coming in, Bishop. People who are watching us are very familiar with CrowdStrike and some of the other topics that you're bringing up. We've got Pop Angel on Periscope telling us, don't forget, CrowdStrike also was funded by Timothy Geithner, Obama's Treasury Secretary. And I definitely want to point out, I'm not sure if you're aware of this guy, Jim Jones. He was, I've just recently learned that he was by Obama's side from the beginning. We're looking at a picture right here of the office of the president-elect, a very young Barack Obama back in 2009 or end of 2008 when he was just elected. Jim Jones became Obama's national security advisor. He was an Army general. Hillary Clinton is standing right there as well. The thing that's relevant about Jim Jones is that under his leadership and with U.S. taxpayer money, according to Patrick Berge, a former U.S. Army private and information technology specialist, General Jones created a company called ClearForce that utilized this government-funded technology called the Shadow Net, which was essentially a social engineering operation that allowed the military to infiltrate social media in Afghanistan and Iraq and spy on the public at large to see where subversive people might be making plans in social media. The scary thing is that this company, ClearForce, has taken ownership of the intellectual property that the military used to create that shadow net, and it's now a public company. This technology is available to anybody who wants to buy it. And Bishop, this can be used to spy on you, to spy on me, to preemptively determine when you or I or anyone out there might engage in behavior that this system considers a risk to the safety of their organization. So everything that you're saying is amplified by the fact that Barack Obama is really the first cyber warfare president and certainly the first individual to utilize cyber warfare against his enemies post-presidency.
That is so amazing. That I did not know. This is the reason why, Jason, you have the most astute listeners I have ever been on any radio or podcast in the last 25 years. Definitely shout outs to your listeners. Very astute, very intelligent in examining the deep state operations of this Ukrainian conspiracy. And this later on, we're going to be breaking down CrowdStrike. And it's very interesting that the think tank at the Atlantic Council,
Yes,
which is run by George Soros, also owns covertly CrowdStrike. So that the DNC, not to juxtapose this chronology, but the DNC hired CrowdStrike to hack their own servers in order to create the Russian narrative to frame not only the Russians, but Donald Trump. And this is the reason why CrowdStrike and the DNC does not want to give over their servers to the FBI. So that if Trump did indeed hack the DNC servers, why not just give over the evidence? Because it didn't happen. So again, kudos to your listeners, very astute here as we are breaking down the conception, birth, in the plot to destroy President Donald J. Trump, and continue to cut right in, Jason, because you're hitting nerves with me that's really taking me to the next level. So this plot, the Ukrainian plot, now there's a new prime minister, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, okay, February the 27th, 2014, which he would later resign April the 16th, 2016. Okay, so this prime minister Arseniy was just as corrupt as the previous prime minister. So this Arseniy was put in by the Obama administration. He resigns in April 2016 because of corruption. So the Obama and Biden administrations, in connection with Victoria Nuland, okay, the Assistant Secretary for European and Eurasian Affairs, was their choice. Arseniy had to resign, okay, 2 years later in 2016 for the same corruption that the previous administration in Ukraine was ousted. Right. So then April of 2014, quickly, Hunter Biden comes on the scene. Hunter Biden was appointed, as a board member on the board of directors for a company by the name of Burisma Holdings Limited, which is one of the most powerful natural gas companies in the Ukraine. He was on the board from 2014 to 2019. But interesting enough, Hunter Biden co-founded the Rosemont Seneca Partners, a firm which was a international consulting firm, and Hunter Biden and his father are up in their neck, Jason, in this Ukrainian corruption. We're going to break down that Christopher Heinz, John Kerry's stepson, okay, and Devin Archer, John Kerry's financial advisor, created and co-founded the Rosemont Seneca Partners consulting firm. So as we move forward here, in April 22nd, 2014, Joe Biden traveled to Ukraine and gave a $50 million check in aid to the new prime minister for the Iranian government. Okay, Petro Poroshenko, a billionaire, was elected president of Ukraine on the 25th of May 2014. So Joe Biden helped Ukraine to obtain a $17.5 billion IMF, the International Monetary Fund package deal in March 2015. Where's that money? I'm going to be talking about that later on. So then Hunter Biden, Christopher Heinz, the son of Teresa Heinz, and the stepson of John Kerry, along with Devin Archer, okay, co-founded this Rosemont Seneca Partners consulting firm, which at the time last year was worth $2.5 billion. Where's all this money coming from? So they partner with a Chinese company called BHR Partners. Okay. In other words, this is a Chinese investment firm called Bohai, capital BOHAI, Industrial Investment Fund Management Company, which is a joint firm with Rosemont Seneca, that was called Bohai Rosemont Seneca Thornton Rosemont Capital Firm, or the Bohai Rosemont Seneca Thornton Firm. Wait a minute. No, who is Thornton Group LLC? Well, the Thornton Group LLC, Jason, is controlled by the Bulger family. That's
Whitey Bulger, right?
Yes. You see? So then, getting back to this Devin Archer quickly before we get to the Bulger family in connection to John Kerry. Devin Archer was the financial advisor for John Kerry, and Devin Archer was indicted by the U.S. government for defrauding an Indian tribe. That's another topic for another day. So the Thornton Group LLC is in cahoots with the Rosemont Seneca consulting firm. But the Rosemont Seneca consulting firm, okay, with Devin Archer, Christopher Heinz, Hunter Biden, is under the umbrella of a company called the Rosemont Capital Firm, or Rosemont Capital, that's controlled by the Heinz family. So then the Thornton Group LLC is controlled by the Bulger family in Boston, Massachusetts, headed by James Bulger, the son of former Massachusetts State Senator Billy Bulger. And James Bulger was named after his uncle, the mob hitman, James Waddy Bulger, who was convicted of 19 murders in 2019, was murdered in prison months before the Mueller report came out.
Yeah, very surprising about that death. The guy was in prison forever, and then he just suddenly they moved him and he was murdered right away.
Yes, because Waddy Bulger, who was an FBI informant, Jason, said that Robert Mueller, who served in the U.S. Attorney's Office, the same Robert Mueller, who used to be the director of the FBI before and enduring 9/11, the same Robert Mueller, who had investigated Donald Trump concerning this Russia collusion, served in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1980s and 90s. Now, Waddy Bulger had named Robert Mueller as a defense witness. Wait a minute, hold up. How does Robert Mueller and even John Kerry know a mob hitman? I'm going to come back. This is corruption, Jason. So then $2.4 to $2.5 billion, Rosemont Capital, okay, which was investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission a few years ago, was involved in this Ukrainian plot. Rosemont Capital is run by the Heinz family. So Rosemont Capital oversees the Rosemont Seneca Partners consulting firm, oversees the Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners firm, and oversees Rosemont Realty. You're talking billions of dollars, sir. So then Hunter Biden, Devin Archer, or become board members of Burisma Holdings in Ukraine, each receiving $1 million a year, $166,000 a month, depending on the report that you read. Why? How? With no experience. So then Hunter Biden partners with the Chinese firm, this Bohaya Industrial Investment Fund Management Company that is owned, Jason, by the Bank of China and connected to Chinese intelligence and the Chinese military.
Wow.
So then this Bohaya RST, there's a merger here between this Bohaya Industrial Investment Fund Management firm to the Rosemont Seneca Partners consulting firm called Bohaya RST.
Bishop, sorry, let me interrupt for a second because we're looking right now at the Rosemont Seneca website, rosemontseneca.com. You'd imagine that a company with so many resources and so much business going on all around the world would have a very sophisticated website. But what we're seeing here is some Apache server error. And when you Google Rosemont Seneca, you do not get to this website. It's very difficult to find. What do you think of that?
And that's by design, just
Of
like
course.
Fusion GPS. You go to Fusion GPS's website, it's the same thing. It's one page.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got to have some type of a encoded password with a high security clearance to enter into that website. See, again, this is the shadow government of the deep state. The shadow government is the invisible power behind the physical manifestation of what we call the deep state. So then this Ohio industrial firm merges with Hunter Biden's company, okay, Rosemont Seneca, to create a partnership that sold American military drone and aircraft technology to the Chinese military. Jason, that's treason.
Well, that's what the Clintons like to do, Bishop.
Yes. Now, if Donald Trump did that, he'd be in prison.
Yeah.
So, see, the conception, birth, and the plot to destroy President Trump, the plot is Ukraine. So then the Obama administration paid $53 million, okay, actually paid $53 million to Hunter Biden, to the Rosemont Seneca firm. And very few people know this. Why would Barack Obama pay Hunter Biden $53 million between 2014 to 2016 to make it look like it was Burisma, but it was Obama? I'm going to come back to that.
Where did Obama get that money? What do you mean? How did he pay him $53 million?
Well, what happened? See, Obama is well connected, okay, to shell corporations. Again, Barack Obama was not a duly elected president, okay? So Barry Soetoro, Barack Obama, who has over 30 aliases, according to the CIA, has shell companies. And one of the shell companies that he is highly invested in is Burisma. But you never hear about Barack Obama's hand in Burisma. In other words, it's through plausible deniability, Obama shields himself. He's not stupid. So then Obama is actually setting the Bidens up, just in case the FBI comes down on the neck of the Bidens, which I believe is going to happen within the next year or two. So then the Obama administration paying $53 million, that doesn't make any sense. Where does he get that money from? To Hunter Biden, to make it look like it was Burisma. Now, quickly here, the Rosemont Capital firm, run by the Heinz family, and which is one of the Rosemont firms that the Biden family, which is also so corrupt, the Biden family is receiving millions and millions of dollars. Okay, so then
It's right here
one,
in New York on 42nd Street, Rosemont Capitol.
look at that. You see, and that's not by accident. So this is the reason why they're so afraid of President Donald J. Trump, because the hammer is coming down, Jason. It's coming down, not just on the Bidens, not just on the Obamas. The hammer is coming down on the deep state, because every section of the apparatus of the United States government was involved, going back to the Uranium One deal in 2010. And what started this deal, remember, Russia invaded Ukraine. Remember the
Yes.
Crimea. And that's all connected to Uranium One, okay? The Clintons, the Bidens, the Obamas, okay? Uranium One, Ukraine. So this $1 billion aid package, okay, is connected to the Uranium One deal. The $1 billion aid package, okay, which was to help the Ukrainian people, never got to the Ukrainian people, because mobsters and oligarchs within the Ukrainian government is stealing this money. I'm going to come to that in the next 15 to 20 minutes. So then we go back to 2010. The Russian Atomic Nuclear Agency, or Rosatom, we talked about them last week, purchased a 51% stake of Uranium One, which is the sale of U.S. uranium mines, and you touched on uranium mines last week, to the Russian government. So then this Frank Goostrop paid $31 billion to the Clinton Foundation, pledged another $100 million to the Clinton Foundation. Rosenthal pledged another $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. Wait a minute, no investigation? So according to the American Spectre, that Bill and Hillary Clinton, okay, October 3rd, 2019, just type in the American Spectre, or October 3rd, 2019, and type in Ukraine. It says that Bill and Hillary Clinton are so connected and tied to Ukrainian corruption and oligarchs. They are heavily connected to gas, okay, and oil out of Ukraine, and they have made millions, Jason. The Clintons have made millions. The Obamas have made millions, including the Bidens, but yet they're trying to take down President Trump. So then quickly here, 2013, going back a year, from 2014 to 13, Hunter Biden travels to China on Air Force Two, along with his father, Joe Sleepy, Creepy, Sniffing Biden. Okay. And then they strike a deal. Hunter strikes a deal with the Bank of China and with the Chinese military to create a $1 billion investment fund, which increased to $1.5 billion. How does this happen? So then in 2014, okay, Russia invades Ukraine, overtakes the Crimea Peninsula that was annexed by the Russian Federation up until this day. The Obama administration, through Congress, gave $1.5 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. Wait a minute now. But there's a $1.5 billion slush fund that pops up in this deal between Rosemont Seneca and the Chinese. So my question is, did the Ukrainians get the $1.5 billion that they were promised, or was that money transferred through a Ponzi scheme to the Chinese? Again, this is the reason why they're afraid of Donald Trump, because their hammer's coming down, my friend. So again, that $1.5 billion aid package, which was intended to assist the Ukrainian government, I believe, Jason, from my interpretation, it was transferred to the Chinese in order for Hunter Biden and his Rosemont Seneca firm to be connected to the political and the legal hip to this Bahia investment firm. This is utter corruption. This makes Watergate look like child's play.
Yeah.
So So then the capital money, $1.5 billion between the Bohia Harvest RST, Rosemont Seneca Thornton Group that is controlled by the Bulger family. Now we go further here in 2014. Now, Vice President Joe Biden sends $1.8 billion to Ukraine. Hunter Biden receives $3.1 million. No experience within the gas industry. Wait a minute now. So Joe Biden is the point man that Barack Obama put in charge because Obama doesn't want his hands in it.
Right.
So then Barry Soetoro sends Joe Biden to Ukraine to give a $1.8 billion package to Ukraine. But Hunter Biden is now sitting on the board of Burisma, receives $3.1 million and between $160,000 to $166,000 per month. Wait a minute now. If you want this $1.8 billion, my son has to occupy your board. That's corruption.
Yeah.
Now, they want to talk about Trump's kids, but the thing is, the difference between the Trump children and the Biden children, you see, the Trump children, their father was not in office, Jason. That's the difference. So then $1.8 billion, okay, comes up missing from the government of Ukraine. Now, there's an oligarch who is the owner of Burisma. His name is Mykola Zlochevsky, okay? Capital Zlochevsky, who owns a private bank in Kyiv. He takes that $1.8 billion, which was supposed to go to the Ukrainian people, and Mykola, who owns Burisma, pockets that money and puts it in its private bank.
Yeah. The bank is called Private Bank. It's kind of pretty obvious
Really?
name. Yeah. And it's in Cyprus, I believe, or it's got a...
Really? That's interesting, you know? And so he's a part of the Ukrainian and Russian mob, okay? Yep. So then he did not have he was prohibited of coming into the United States. Then after he receives the $1.8 billion, some way, somehow, he gets a visa, Jason. A monster gets a visa, comes into the continental geographical location of the United States of America. So quickly, the Obama administration sends advisors now between 2014 to 2016. I'm just dissecting this conspiracy. These advisors, okay, Greg Craig, Tad Devine, and Tony
Gregory
Podesta.
Craig was Bill Clinton's personal attorney and actually himself was recently under scrutiny, but was acquitted.
Absolutely. Tony Podesta, the brother of John Podesta, Pizzagate.
Rogues. Yep.
Yes. Mark Penn, okay? All of these so-called advisors were sent by Barack Obama to work within the Ukrainian government for the new prime minister that they put in, who later resigned in April of 2016. So then the Ukrainian government today is ranked 126 on the Corruption Perceptions Index published by Transparency International, one of the most corrupted governments still upon the planet. So quickly here, 2014, the FBI investigates Paul Manafort. See, this is where they're trying to create a connection between Trump, Manafort, Russia, and the Ukraine. So that the FBI investigates Paul Manafort in 2014. So then the FBI shuts down the case against Paul Manafort. Why? So in other words, when we examine the conception, birth, and the plot to destroy Donald J. Trump, the plot is Ukraine. So we juxtapose, we go forward to January 2016. So the Trump-Russian collision narrative is shaped by the Obama administration through Joe Biden and the Democratic National Committee that created this fake Russian narrative. Now, going back a year late, actually going back a few months, late in 2015, and it gets really, really creepy now, Jason. The DNC hires a DNC operative by the name of Alexandra Chalupa.
Chalupa, yeah.
No pun intended. Okay, for Taco Bell.
Drop the chalupa.
Chalupa, so that she's the daughter of a Ukrainian immigrant. She's hired by the DNC, actually, specifically by Bill and Hillary Clinton, to do opposition research on Donald Trump. Now, in 2015, Donald J. Trump, in Trump Towers, announces his run for the presidency. So this Alexandra Chalupa, a DNC deep state operative, is trying to link Donald Trump to Russia, Ukraine, in order to create a Russian-Ukrainian hoax. He hasn't even begun to campaign yet. He's just coming down the alleyway. He's coming down. See, in other words, they were so afraid of Donald Trump because they knew if he got elected, this house of cards would come down. Now, the DNC paid Chalupa $412,000 from 2004 to June 2016, according to the Federal Election Commission records. Now, according to the liberal op-ed Political, Alexandra Chalupa asked the Ukrainian embassy, get this, Jason, to arrange a meeting with the new Ukrainian president, Petro Poroshenko, okay, June of 2014, who was the president of Ukraine from 2014 to 2019. Between Poroshenko and with the former Ukrainian president that they ousted, Viktor Yanukovych. Wait a minute, why would the Obama administration want to talk to the man that they excommunicated? Again, this is corruption, Jason. So then to understand the conception, the birth, and now the plot to destroy President Donald J. Trump, this Alexandra Chalupa, she said, and I quote, "I felt there was a Russian connection. No proof, but she felt there was a Russian connection." So then the Clinton campaign had a Democratic operative working with the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, D.C., trying to connect, Jason, President Trump to Russia through the Ukrainian lawmaker, okay, Leshchenko, capital Leshchenko. Leshchenko himself was convicted December of 2018 by the Ukrainian courts. Why? For helping the Clinton campaign in the Clinton machine trying to win the 2016 election, with the help of another deep state operative, Michael Isikoff of Yahoo News.
Well, he's the guy who reported the dossier.
Yes. So what they're blaming Trump for doing, the DNC was doing, Hillary Clinton was doing, using Russian mobsters to help her to win the 2016 presidential election. This is wicked. So this Alexandra Chalupa, okay, and this whistleblower, Eric C., a 33-year-old CIA analyst, okay, in the Obama administration, working with Susan Rice, another deep state operative. And if your listeners check out the website Gaslit Nation, they interviewed the sister of Alexandra Chalupa, Andrea Chalupa. Okay. She said, and I quote, that the DNC hacking investigation was done by my sister, Alexandria. Okay. She's the sister of this DNC operative. Andrea Chalupa said that her sister was involved through the DNC concerning the hacking investigation done by CrowdStrike. We talked about them a few minutes ago, a cybersecurity firm out of Irvine, California, to create Russian actors. Now, by the way, this Andrea Chalupa, one of her side jobs is an actress in Hollywood. So
Hmm.
she, with the help of her sister Andrea, these Chalupa sisters hired Russian actors based on the work done by her older sister, Alexandria Chalupa. They hire Russian actors to hack the DNC servers as a pretext to blame Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Wicked.
Not
So
only
the
that,
DNC
Bishop, but when I'm going to
operate.
all these websites that you mentioned, I'm having significant difficulty. So this Gaslit Nation, they've got apparently a podcast here on Stitcher called Voldemort Putin, which is, I think Voldemort is some Lord of the Rings thing. So they're, you're getting into kind of LARPing here. But when I
Yeah.
went to Gaslit Nation, it wanted me to download some kind of Chrome. Here we go. So Gaslit Nation and Andrea Chalupa with Sarah Kendzior.
Yes. You see. So in other words, something happened between Andrea and her older sister, Alexandra. So then her younger sister, Andrea, exposes her. And because her older
But does
sister
she,
is
though, Bishop? Sorry to interrupt, but I feel like we've seen a lot of these sibling teams where they appear to be adversaries, or one of them exposes the other so that people think, oh, this person really knows. I think it's probably a lot of nonsense.
and it could be as well. But the thing is, Jason, whether and you're so right into saying that because many times it's nonsense, but in this case, it's true because everything points back to Alexandra Chalupa being an operative for the DNC, trying to connect Trump to Manafort, to Russia, to Ukraine, to CrowdStrike. And CrowdStrike was hired by Hillary Clinton to hack the DNC servers to create the narrative as if Vladimir Putin, Trump, and the KGB or the Russian government was involved in winning the 2016 presidential election.
Now, let me ask you
And
this, because I know that CrowdStrike is the only group that's been allowed to inspect the server. Do we have evidence that they actually hacked it?
well, there is evidence now that President Trump had said back in December of last year,
That
okay?
the server's in Ukraine, right?
Yes, that the servers are in Ukraine, and he called out for a full-fledged investigation through the FBI to force CrowdStrike and the DNC to give up their server. Jason, if Trump is guilty, why won't CrowdStrike and the DNC give up their servers? Why? Because they're involved. They
Yeah.
lied against the president. Okay.
One other thing
So,
I'll add is that you mentioned the connections between CrowdStrike and the Atlantic Council. Dmitry
yes,
Alperovitch is a fellow at the Atlantic Council, and he also is one of the principals in CrowdStrike, along with Sean Henry, who is a former special
yes,
agent at the FBI. So, by all measures, it seems to be essentially an FBI cutout where they're
yes.
able to, you get somebody who knows the policies and procedures of the FBI. He understands what sort of pesky laws are in place that prevent the FBI from doing certain things. And it's much easier to create a corporation than it is to affect a change in policy or law. So these guys can create a company that can then be a contractor to the FBI that can do certain things that the FBI might not be able to otherwise do.
And Jason, you're so ahead of me. And that's why you're a great host because you and I have the same type of mind in researching the truth. That's why you're a great researcher, my friend. So this Sean Henry was promoted by Robert Mueller, okay, or the Mueller report, who later created the Mueller report. They exonerated the president. Robert Mueller promoted the Sean Henry as the head of cybersecurity back in the 2000s.
Hmm.
Now, Sean Henry is one of the principal managers of CrowdStrike, okay, which the DNC hired them during the spring of 2016 So then CrowdStrike in the DNC refuses to turn over the servers, which reinforces the notion, Jason, okay, that Alexandra Chalupa was involved with Hillary Clinton, okay, with the DNC, hiring CrowdStrike to hack their own servers to make it look like it was Donald Trump and the Russians. So then, when we talk again, getting back to CrowdStrike, do you know CrowdStrike is heavily funded by Google?
Yes.
Google was bought by George Soros back in 2012,
Was it?
according to magazine.
Wait a minute.
Okay,
Not in its entirety. He must have invested in it. There's no way
well,
George Soros owns all of
well,
it.
back in 2012, he heavily invested into Google, but at that time, now I don't know what his specific amount of shares is now. I'm talking about George Soros. Back in 2012, according to Forbes magazine, that he heavily invested into Google, actually bought most, if not all, most around 65 to 70% of the shares of Google,
Wow.
which means at that time he owned it. He
You're
also
right.
bought.
Forbes. I'll tell you, Bishop, you're on target, man. It's here. We got this article right here from. Well,
Absolutely.
Forbes is getting upset about the ad blocker, but it says George Soros buys Google.
He buys Google. And he also bought a company by the name of Comverse Tech, capital COMVERSE Tech. Now, CrowdStrike is also funded by the arms industry of certain countries. In Europe, NATO funds CrowdStrike. The government of Saudi Arabia funds CrowdStrike. Okay,
Wow.
Victor Pinchuk, who gave the Clinton Global Initiative $10 million, he is one of the financial benefactors of CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike frames the Russian narrative, okay, that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin manipulated the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. It's a lie. So the DNC, CrowdStrike, like we said a few minutes ago, refuses to turn over their servers, okay? And those servers, I believe, are in Ukraine. In other words, it would expose the DNC, okay, as the conspirators that would bring about the Russian narrative between Donald Trump, Paul Manafort, and Vladimir Putin, which is all based on lies. Now, we talked about this Atlantic Council some minutes ago. So
Hmm.
CrowdStrike is tied to a think tank called the Atlantic Council, okay, which is actually controlled by George Soros. Now, if you look on AtlanticCouncil.org, they have a very interesting article called "Thank You, George," dated Monday, December 14th, 2015. Thank you, George, on AtlanticCouncil.org. So the Open Society Foundation, controlled by George Soros, okay, a Nazi,
Yep.
gave the Atlantic Council $181 million, okay? Why? To control not just the Atlantic Council, but CrowdStrike. Jason, this is before the 2016 presidential election. We got to connect the ley lines here. So now remember back on the 9th of November 2015, the deep state operative whistleblower Eric C. was invited the DNC operative, this Alexandra Chalupa, okay, at the White House at the behest of President Obama. So Eric C., the whistleblower, Chapula, this Alexandra Chapula, created the Russian collusion hoax, the Ukrainian collusion scandal, connected with the Atlantic Council, George Soros, which activated CrowdStrike to to hack the DNC servers, to create the Russian narrative connecting Trump and Manafort to Russia and Ukraine, in order to give birth, Jason, to the Trump impeachment inquiry, September 24, 2019 to December 18, 2019, which also gave birth to the Senate impeachment trial that began back on the 16th of January last month, in which the final vote is tomorrow, my friend.
Yeah.
Now we have come to the conclusion of this session here. Again, notice what I said at the beginning of my teaching, that knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong. So my assignment is to take to a complex conspiracy, which is so it gives people a headache. Okay, it is a conspiracy that is so full of complexities. It is for me to uncomplex it, which I believe that is not a word that exists, but I'm creating that word myself. I don't want to hear any of your listeners calling you, okay,
Yeah.
emailing you. So then Bishop is saying, using the word that may or may not exist, my job was to uncomplex and unplot the plotters
Hmm.
who plotted the demise of Donald J. Trump. So always remember, to your audience, to your listeners, after a crisis is over, the only thing we have to look back on, Jason, is how we handled ourselves during the crisis. Donald J. Trump handled himself perfectly, presidential. Okay. Now, you know what happened? I believe it was last week during the Senate trial. Who was the congressman out of Jerry Nadler?
Yeah.
Got knocked over a chair in order to speak. You see, the deep state is unrattling. It's being exposed, Jason. So I want to leave this with you before we close out today. Joe Biden. Okay. Now, Joe Sleepy, Creepy, Sniffing Biden, okay, who withheld $1 billion to the Ukrainian government. This quid pro Joe said that unless you remove the prosecuting general, Victor Shokin, capital Shokin, from the case, because Shokin, my friend, was investigating Burisma and Hunter Biden,
Yeah.
including Devon Archer. So that's a quick pro Joe. See, they're the same thing that they're blaming the president, Joe Biden did.
Yep.
So then, back in 1974, see, when President Joe Biden, former Vice President, was Senator Biden. See, Senator Biden, Joe Biden is a racist. He talks about he's a champion for civil rights. Bull crap. Back in 1974, Senator Joe Biden supported a separate but equal bill. He
Hmm.
supported the separate but equal bill. In other words, he supported segregation. Remember, 20 years after the Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. In 1974, Joe Biden was a Southern segregationist, even though he's from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Joe Biden said in an interview to NPR in 1974, and I quote, segregation was a matter, get this, of black pride. Oh, you kidding me? Segregation was a matter of black pride? Joe Biden, along with the late George Wallace, a racist, supported to oppose racial integration within the public school system back in 1974.
Hmm.
So in 1994, and I'm done, Senator Biden was the author of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, which was, even by African Americans on the left, viewed as the new Jim Crow bill, where 2.5 million black men, 1/10 of the black male population, was in prison. Why? Because of Joe Biden. Are you kidding me? And he's running for president, for the presidency of the United States of America. Joe Biden is a racist. Joe Biden is nothing more than a Southern segregationist, okay, in a suit from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Joe Sleepy, Creepy, Sniffing Biden, Pizza Cake Biden, is up in his neck in this Russian hoax, this Ukraine hoax. He's a racist, okay? Look what happened last night in the Iowa caucuses. A mess in the Democratic Party,
Yeah.
okay? Now you got what's his name? Mini Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Okay, he has to sit on what 2 or 3. So listen, President Trump is going to win in the greatest landslide in presidential and U.S. presidential history. And so that
I
is the
think you might be
conclusion.
right.
That's it. And that is the conclusion of this series entitled "The Conception, Birth, and the Plot to Destroy President Donald J. Trump."
Very
So
well
many
done.
connections, lines here.
Yeah. Now, Bishop, I don't want to incite you, but I'm aware of some of your personal views. And now that we have heard a little bit about Mike Bloomberg, I wonder if you have seen this campaign ad that Mike Bloomberg did with his new favorite kind of ice cream.
No, I have not seen that yet. No, sir.
Are you familiar with this? There's a brand. There was an ice cream truck here in New York that became very successful and started an ice cream shop in the West Village, and I think now you can even get it at supermarkets around the country. And I mean, I've got no issue with this, but I know your personal feelings might differ. Mike Bloomberg did a campaign ad where he's eating this product called Big Gay Ice Cream. And in addition to pandering to really what I think would be technically qualified as a fringe group, it's just such a stupid ad. He's like standing there eating ice cream. He's the worst actor. What does gay ice cream have to do with being the president? The whole thing was weird.
That's weird. And you know what? Mike Bloomberg, he wants to buy the presidency. Okay, that's his goal. He wants to buy the presidency because the Democratic left-wing establishment is so afraid that Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. They don't want, I guarantee you, Jason, as they hoodwinked and tricked Bernie 4 years ago, they're going to do it again. Trump is going to win anyway, but I'm just saying that Bernie Sanders, President Obama said, we don't want Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders represents the far left. Or Obama is a hypocrite because Obama is a socialist as well. Okay. Yeah. But Obama is more sophisticated in his sophistication as a socialist. So then, but getting back to mini Mike Bloomberg and this gay ice cream, I never seen that commercial, but I'm going to check it out. Very interesting. But he will not win the presidency, but he's trying to change the political trajectory of the Democratic Party. He's really not a Democrat. He's a centrist running as a Democrat, trying to buy the presidency, but it's not going to work. And why? Because the plot to destroy Donald J. Trump has foiled, it has been exposed. And I guarantee you, Jason, after President Trump's second inauguration on the 20th of January, 2021, all of these devils are going to be indicted, okay? All of them are going to be indicted. They're going to be in prison. Why? Because this is the greatest conspiracy and crime, second only to the JFK assassination in American political history, my friend. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to dissect this to your great listeners today.
Well, I appreciate the research that you've done and sharing it with us on the show, Bishop. I do want to remind everybody that they can support Bishop Gaiters' Global Spiritual Revolution by going to paypal.me/GSRR Media Group. And you can support this show by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. It's going to give you an access to a huge and growing library of video content that's not available anywhere else. Real quickly before we go, Bishop, I like to observe these little bits of, I think you'd call them metadata, as we go along in the show. You're bringing up so many points and topics. I do my best to keep up, but this Thornton group, I was able to find a reference to them on LinkedIn. And the overview says it's a cross-border capital intermediary whose purpose is to facilitate the strategic vision of its clients by providing advisory services and deal structuring expertise, founded by Michael Lynn and James Bulger. So, I mean, that's a lot of happy horse manure, as people might say. But when I click on the go to the website button, it again takes me to, one of these websites that is not what I would expect to see from some fancy financial company. It looks like they haven't paid their GoDaddy bill or something, because it's just taking us to this dead link.
That's not by accident, Jason. It is these men are not multimillionaires for being stupid. They're not stupid. It is purposely done. They have some of these high security clearance level websites. So again, you're a great researcher, Jason. I'm telling you. And I'm telling you, you are way better than Fox News. I love Fox News, but you're way better because of your in-depth research. And to your listeners, before we close out, if you want to learn more in depth about this Ukrainian conspiracy, just go to the Epic Times website. Excellent resource. They're not just excellent because they support the president. Excellent resource with great writers. The Epic Times and just type in Biden Obama officials stood to gain from Ukraine influence. Again, Biden Obama officials stood to gain from Ukraine influence. And please also go to another a great Patriots website, glennbeck.com, and just type in Ukraine, the Democrats, Russia. Again, Ukraine, the Democrats, Russia. Glenn Beck gives multiple links, Jason, of documents, okay, from Senator Chuck Grassley, all of the documents collected by John Solomon, okay, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, the FEC 2016 expenditures connected to Alexandra Chulupa, okay, the statement of the Prosecutor General Lensenko to the Hill. Documented links, documentations, everything for your listeners to be connected to. And I want to also, I'm telling you, thank you so much, Jason. Next Tuesday is my 57th birthday.
Oh,
okay?
Happy birthday, Bishop. We should do something special for the show.
Yeah, I am. And I am not going to take off. A lot of my listeners have been asking me, emailing me, am I going to take off? I am not going to take off next week. No, I am going to begin a brand new series concerning Kobe Bryant at 3
People
parts.
have been asking for that, for sure.
It is going to blow your people's minds. Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project. Again, Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project. His death is connected to multiple pharmaceutical companies that he was going to expose, just like the actor Paul Walker, Fast and the Furious. This is not accidental. Catastrophes, these are pre-thought, pre-planned, connected to George Soros, documented. So you will not want to miss that.
Real briefly before we go, Bishop, because as you've been speaking, I've been trying to get to even an archived version of this Thornton, whatever it is. And it's interesting to note there are a number of websites that I've gone to lately which seem to defy this Internet Archive Wayback Machine's ability to create what people have maybe incorrectly thought was some indelible record of the Internet. I mean, of course, this is a web page as well that could just be edited or deleted or whatever. You see, it says donate right here. So obviously they need money to run the Wayback Machine. And depending on who donates and what the amount is, I wonder if there's any ability to influence what this thing archives or not. The other thing I wanted to touch on is that this NABU, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, as I understand it, was created by the FBI. So it's essentially another FBI cutout.
Wow, that I did not. Again, Jason, you're a great researcher, man. I'm telling you, helping me to go to the next level. Excellent research, my friend. And this Whitey Bulger connection to Robert Mueller and John Kerry. I'm going to say something. I cannot substantiate this, and I'm not, as a historian and researcher, I just don't throw stuff up against the window or the wall to see if it's going to stick. It's my opinion. Okay, there's no links you can find for it online. My Bishop's opinion that Whitey Bulger worked for Robert Mueller, okay, as an FBI informant, including John Kerry in some capacity. Okay, I don't know what that capacity is, but Whitey Bulger ends up dead a few months before the Mueller report comes out.
Right.
And I'm going to end it today. Very powerful.
Yeah, very well said, Bishop. Yeah, Whitey Bulger. Really strange that he would survive as long as he did in jail, and then suddenly, when Robert Mueller is in the spotlight, he
Yeah.
simply gets snuffed out in prison. Bishop, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Happy birthday. We've got some
Thank
more shows coming up today. I'm going to be speaking with Jared Beck, get his legal analysis on the impeachment trial in the Senate. He's going to speak about Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Of course, Jared is an alumni of Harvard and a lawyer himself, so that'll be very interesting. And then tonight on patreon.com/truepundit and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and Subscribestar, we've got More Pain with Michael Moore of True Pundit. So get onto Patreon, get onto Subscribestar, support the global spiritual revolution, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for watching.